Alright, let's summarize this one last time. Rusty Lake is a horror mystery game series which uses puzzles and surreal imagery in its escape room gameplay. At the start of the series, we the player live out the last days of a mysterious and troubled woman we know very little about. In the fifth game, our POV switches to various characters who are somehow connected to the first protagonist, Laura Vanderboom, and her death. It soon becomes this decade-spanning supernatural narrative about cults, alchemist families, strange time loops, and a bird that really likes Beethoven's music. In this world, corrupted souls are looking to escape their fates. At the same time, people are committing heinous acts left and right to harness the power over time and memory through a lake. Sounds like a lot, but it's actually quite easy to follow if you write it all down. The Rusty Lake series has used different cultures and cosmologies to add a layer of meaning to its characters. If you haven't watched my last two videos or don't understand Sanskrit and Lao, this might sound a bit weird, but stick with me. You can check my previous two videos about it. I go into samsara, the elixir of life, and the inspirations behind the corrupted soul. Links to those are in the description below. That being said, Rusty Lake's influences actually don't just end with Buddhism and Hinduism. A story important to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam are alluded to in Rusty Lake Paradise, which will be our main focus for today. For those who don't know these stories from Abrahamic religions, I'll be explaining the influences, as well as some facts about medieval Europe. With that out of the way, let's get on with the show.
From that first glimpse of the island, I could feel my mother's presence. It's hard to forget someone who gave so much to remember.
Rusty Lake Paradise is actually the 12th game of the company, but it's the very first in its timeline. In this game, we play as Jacob, the black sheep of the Alander family, and that's just because he's the normal one. He's back home because his mother, Caroline, has died. Despite spending 15 years of his life away from home, his father implored him to return in 1796. The game starts when Jacob arrives at Paradise, and we, the player, finally meet his family. There's David, his mischievous and antagonistic little brother, Elizabeth, his blind and cryptic sister, his uncle Gerard, who rarely talks, his weird grandmother Margaret, and his father Nicholas. Nicholas reveals to Jacob that Paradise has been suffering since Caroline died, which is why there's blood everywhere. The first plague has come and it won't be the last. He doesn't explain why this is happening and he doesn't even give clues. Like many fictional fathers, he prefers the hands-off approach. Thanks, Dad. In spite of his very cold and distant behavior, at least compared to Grandma Margaret, Nicholas asks Jacob to help him. So, you spend the rest of the day catching up with the family and gathering leeches until you open a gate. But then, on the other side of it, is Caroline. She's become a shadowy figure known as a corrupted soul, most likely due to her memories being extracted. Caroline tells Jacob to remove the plague by collecting her memories and casts a shadow of distrust over the other Alanders. In the first memory you collect, we see Jacob's siblings, father, uncle, and grandmother standing over Caroline's coffin in some sort of ritual. They're wearing the masks that will become their next incarnations. Nicholas makes it clear that they're sacrificing her memories to the lake, and he asks only for enlightenment in return. This sets the stage for the entire game. With each of Caroline's memories we collect, we save Paradise from the 10 plagues. Simultaneously, we slowly piece together why Jacob left Paradise and how his mother died. We learn that his mother Caroline clearly loved Jacob and that his father Nicholas was sort of a spiritual leader of the island. As he grew older, Nicholas taught Jacob the importance of making sacrifices for the sake of maintaining Paradise. Sometime after his brother David was born, Nicholas actually tried to sacrifice Jacob to appease the lake, but Caroline intervened and offered to sacrifice herself instead. Using a boat, Caroline sent Jacob away for his own safety. It seems that Jacob was too young and traumatized to remember what his terrible father did, but he loved his mother enough to remember her and to return upon her death. Given that we only see the failed enlightenment ritual once both his siblings, David and Elizabeth, are teenagers, it looks like Caroline's fate as a sacrificial lamb was delayed for many years. For what reason, we don't know. It could be that the devs didn't have time to draw the child models, or maybe the A-landers put off Caroline's sacrifice due to lingering attachments. As Jacob realizes that he was the original sacrifice, and that they had burned Caroline at the stake, it becomes clear that the A-lander family was setting him up this whole time, just letting him tie the noose around his neck. However, Caroline was also creating the tools in which Jacob could escape his execution. She enacts the first reincarnation ritual in Jacob's lifetime. This ritual can resurrect a deceased corrupted soul and turn them into a human or an animal-human hybrid. This was done through her formula of reincarnation, where she had to take 10 objects from her past life. Caroline, as her last act of protection and revenge, mends her soul with Jacob, and so mother and son are both reincarnated as Mr. Owl. The lake chose Jacob as a sacrifice, maybe even as a pair to Caroline's reincarnation. It also seems to choose future characters for similar positions. But what does it mean when the lake chooses you? How were you chosen? Paradise seems to lean a lot more strongly into religious imagery and themes in this game instead of relying more on language and a few hints. But what is this Frankenstein religion in Rusty Lake? I'll start first with explaining what Paradise is taking from. Moses is a religious figure present in the three Abrahamic religions, and by extension that means he's in the Quran, the Torah, and the Bible. The way his story goes depends on what ebook you have right now. Here are my copies! However, given that the Quran only talks about 5 plagues, we'll be focusing on the Jewish and Christian version of the story. Moses' story starts with the Hebrews living in Egypt and growing as a large population. At that time, they were enslaved by Egyptians, and we all know where oppression leads. The Pharaoh worried that the Hebrews would rise up against him and decided he needed to enforce a truly monstrous law. If a Hebrew woman in Egypt gave birth to a baby girl, the child would be spared. If she gave birth to a boy, he would be drowned in the Nile River. Yocheved, wanting to save her newborn son, hid him and put him in a wicker basket. It was placed among the reeds of the Nile, and she hoped he would end up somewhere safe. Eventually, the basket reached the Pharaoh's daughter, who was bathing in the river. She's sometimes called Bithia. Not caring that he was a Hebrew, she took the baby in and named him Moses, because she drew him from the water. Miriam, his biological older sister and future prophetess, saw Moses being adopted into the Pharaoh's family. She walked up to Bithia and said she would get her own mother to nurse him. Despite what popular adaptations of this story will tell you, Moses always knew that he was a Hebrew while he was part of the Pharaoh's family. This put him in a rather complicated position. In some Jewish tellings of this story, he was even tested by being made to choose gold or coal as a toddler. An angel guided him to the coal, since choosing gold would make it look like he would rise up against the Pharaoh in the future. After touching the burning piece of coal, Moses put his hand in his mouth, which burned his tongue and caused a speech impediment. Sometime after he'd grown into a man, Moses saw an Egyptian slave driver abusing a Hebrew slave. Seeing that no one else was around, he killed the Egyptian, but he knew he would be found out eventually. Fearing punishment, he fled the scene of the crime, braved the desert, and started a new life in Midian as a shepherd. He married Zipporah, the daughter of the Midian high priest, and had a son with her. A while after that, the Pharaoh died and was replaced, but the oppression of the Hebrews continued. God, who had heard the Jewish people in Egypt pray for help, decided to send the person who was spared from this fate. In the form of a burning bush, God tells Moses he has to return now that the enemies he made are dead. God tells him that he has to free his people from slavery and help strengthen their relationship with God through worship. He promises Moses he'll lead them to a place flowing with milk and honey, a place he calls the Promised Land. This is either a metaphor for salvation or a real place. He doesn't really say. God also instructs Moses to meet with Aaron, his older brother, and the two form a partnership, which is good because he doesn't want to end up like Cain or Abel.
Oh, those biblical times!
When he comes to Egypt, Moses says his most famous words, "Let my people go," to the Pharaoh, who ignores him and pretends like his house isn't on fire. The plagues God sends to free the slaves goes in this order. Water turns into blood, frogs, gnats and lice, flies, diseased livestock, boils, hail, locusts, darkness, and lastly, the death of the firstborn. As you can see, these are the same 10 plagues Rusty Lake Paradise uses. After each plague, the new Pharaoh tells Moses he'll let his people go if he fixes it. Moses asks God to stop the plague, but then the Pharaoh goes, "I changed my mind, I'm keeping them." And then Moses sends in the next plague. This happens again and again. They target the Egyptians and avoid the Hebrews' Carters. But most of the story is centered as a fight between Moses and his God versus the Pharaoh and his cruelty. Okay, pausing for a moment to say that honestly this ethical dilemma is why I put off making this video for so long. I mean, a lot of people already have talked about it or whatever. I'm just gonna flash the reasoning why right now on the screen. Not gonna lie, I really love this movie. Like, no amount of bad memories is gonna make me not like this movie. It's kind of like The Exorcist.
Sorry, Major, there's no later. The future's been canceled by the War Department. We're just gonna replay the past.
See, guess what? Even after I deleted my last two videos on my iPad, which broke, I have no storage space. Heavy sigh. See you in part 2.